sekali atas kehadiran Bapak-Bapak sekalian pada roundtable discussion hari ini tentang unlocking opportunities, advancing Indonesian leadership in sustainable palm oil. Di depan Bapak sudah kenal, ini sebelah kiri saya Pak Satya, dia adalah Director dari Global Alliance of Sustainable Development. Bapak Wakil Menteri Pertanian, Bapak Sudaryono, kemudian Ambassador Yuri, ya, bekas duta besar kita di Uni Eropa, di Inggris, dan lain-lain, dan sekarang salah satu board dari IPOSS, Indonesian Palm Oil Strategic Studies. Hari ini, acara ini adalah collaboration antara IBC, di mana saya ditunjuk sebagai CEO. Pak Henry ini CEO pertama bagi saya. Baru jadi CEO setelah umur 40 lebih gitu ya. Nggak pernah punya pengalaman jadi CEO, sekarang jadi CEO setelah pensiun dari menteri jadi CEO IBC, kemudian kerja sama IBC dan IPOSS. IPOSS adalah Indonesian Palm Oil Strategic Studies, barangkali Bapak sudah mengetahui semua, lembaga riset advokasi kebijakan menjaga dan memperjuangkan tentang kepentingan strategis palm oil yang merupakan salah satu tulang punggung ekonomi Indonesia. Saya di sana sebagai salah satu pengawas bersama Pak Darmin, co-chairman kita dengan Pak Darmin. Kemudian partner ketiga adalah Pak Satya, beliau adalah chairman atau CEO Global Alliance for Sustainable Development. Beliau sudah pengalamannya lama sekali di Indonesia, bisa ngomong bahasa Indonesia tapi tidak berani ngomong. Tapi bisa mengerti. Jadi kalau Bapak mau ngomong bahasa Indonesia, mungkin bahasa Indonesia lebih baik daripada saya. Cuma nggak bisa berani aja ngomong. Makasih. Silakan Pak Satya.
Thank you, Pak Sofyan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, the Vice Minister of Agriculture, Republic of Indonesia, we have gathered here today for a very simple conversation. And the simple conversation is that Indonesia is kind of at a crossroads in terms of sustainable palm oil. For those of you that are part of this sector would understand this challenge much better than I do, but I have been also involved a little bit in this. There's a moral question and then there is an operational imperative. The moral outrage that many of you in the room feel that whether it is the US or the European Union, we're talking about carbon. So if you look at historically, the carbon story is a very mixed story. The United States has used 25% of the historical carbon, globally speaking. The European Union has used 22% of the carbon. And now carbon is suddenly a problem because somebody used it up more than they should have. And then now countries like Indonesia have to answer for that. So that's the moral outrage many of you feel in the room. I share that moral outrage. But the operational imperative is that geopolitics and global economic movement of goods and services works very differently. No matter the moral outrage, the reality is different. The reality is that certain systems, certain countries, certain economic systems, whether they are national or regional, are structured in a way that they have outsized influence in the conversation. So when EU says that we have a quota system now for companies that operate within the EU, what is called the EU ETS, and then now we have a carbon border adjustment mechanism, the CBAM, where in case you are producing inefficiently outside as compared to our systems, we will add a price tag to that, and that's what makes you uncompetitive to come into the European Union. And then of course there's the EU RED regulations, which is directly related to Indonesia's largest agricultural produce, palm oil. It involves at least 18 million people and some more, because if you add the families and all, it's a lot more people we're talking about. And so how does Indonesia turn that conversation around and races ahead in that sustainability race so that it becomes the country with the best lesson to teach in the world. And I say this from personal experience. About 20 years ago, I had the privilege of coming and serving in Indonesia as the UN Recovery Coordinator for tsunami. I was Pak Kuntoro's UN counterpart, and what I saw for 4 years was an extraordinary lesson in integrity, in humility, in efficiency, so that the tsunami recovery that Indonesia did would stand out as the best disaster recovery model anywhere on the planet. Even now, if there is a disaster somewhere, people refer to it as something to draw from, you know. So can we replicate that in the sustainable palm oil sector so that every stakeholder comes together under the leadership of the Honorable Minister, and we find the right kind of resources at the right kind of costs so that we turn that whole story around and then tell the whole world that you created a problem, we are solving it for you. And so that's the whole intent and purpose of this conversation. It's not a rhetorical conversation, it's a meaningful conversation, because we would like this to be the first of many such conversations, and hopefully in 6 to 9 months' time, we should be talking about several hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into the world's most technologically advanced, sustainable, smallholder oil palm movement that others can learn from and replicate. So that's basically the goal of this. I'll stop here and invite the Honorable Vice Minister of Agriculture, Republic of Indonesia, to deliver his keynote. The floor is yours, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati distinguished guest, Pak Menteri Dr. Sofian Jalil, kemudian Pak Satya Tripati. Terima kasih untuk thank you for the opening and all this vision, your vision. And Mr. Paul Polman, former CEO of Unilever, Sustainable Advocate, Ambassador Yuri Tamrin, Indonesian Ambassador to Belgium. Selamat siang, Pak. Mr. Martinus Haryo Sutejo, Surveyor Indonesia. Mr. Fitrian Ardiansyah, former Chair of IDH Indonesia. And Mr. Peter Kennedy, Chief Investment Officer, Global Fund for Coral Reef. Ladies and gentlemen, participants. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Indonesian Business Council, IBC, Global Alliance for Sustainable Planet, and Indonesia Palm Oil Strategic Studies, IPOSS, for their successful collaboration in organizing this event. Of course, it is a great honor for me standing here before you, alongside esteemed colleagues and fellow speakers, to share our insight and contribute to this year's IES event. I also delighted to participate in this special session on unlocking opportunities, advancing Indonesia's leadership in sustainable palm oil. Distinguished participants, guests, and ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia, as we understand that Indonesia is one of the largest producers palm oil in the world. The industry has long been a cornerstone of our economic development, creating millions of jobs and fostering rural growth across the archipelagos. Palm oil accounts for 3.5% of national GDP and support the livelihoods of over 16 million people. Plus the family, it will be multiple, 4.2 million directly employed and 12 million indirectly. Once again, multiple by the number of the family. The industry has contributed to food security, where around 10 million tons of processed to become cooking oil and other food products, and energy security by producing biodiesel. For example, B40, target for 2025 will require approximately 15.3 million tons of CPO, This figure underscores the vital role palm oil continues to play in the job creation, domestic consumption, and renewable energy production. As Indonesia's population grow, the palm oil sector remain central to our economic strategy. However, we acknowledge the pressing challenges facing the palm oil industry in Indonesia, such as environmental concern, deforestation, biodiversity loss, labor issue, and the needs of the greater smallholder inclusion. Many smallholders struggle with meeting sustainability standards and accessing certification, which impedes this participation in the global market. As demand of responsible production practices increases worldwide, Indonesia must evolve to maintain its competitiveness. At the same time, fluctuation in price and disruption in supply chain present additional challenges for us. Addressing these challenges effectively is essential for securing the long-term prosperity for both the palm oil industry and also Indonesia's broader economic future. In this context, Indonesia has a critical opportunity to take the lead in promoting sustainable practices within the palm oil sectors. I'm very confident that we are already on the right path toward achieving this goal. Distinguished participant guests, ladies and gentlemen, to meet the growth target, the government, President Prabowo has already announced that the target in these 5 years is 8% of growth. To meet this 8% of growth, Ministry of Agriculture making a growth for the estate crop subsector 5.7% annually. So to meet that growth, the palm oil industry must see a production increase at least 4% per year, aiming for 100 million ton of CPO on 2045. The current production, we are sitting down here, around 46 million ton of CPO, 20 million for domestic and 26 million exporting around the world. The Ministry of Agriculture is working closely with all stakeholders to achieve this through three primary efforts. There are three primary efforts. The first one is regulatory support. Designing new area for biodiesel development, coordinating with the other ministry like Ministry of Forestry, Ministry of Agraria, Spatial Planning, National Land Agency, Ministry of Agriculture. Optimizing land managed under corporate permit, IUP, HGU, coordinating with the Ministry of Forestry, Ministry of Agraria, BPN, and also Agriculture. Revising the mandatory biodiesel blending policy and establishing B50 quality standard involving the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Expanding biodiesel industry capacity, Investment Board, Indonesia Investment Board. Adjusting biodiesel incentive tariff, Ministry of Finance, Plantation Fund Management Agency, BPD PKS. The second one is upstream aspect, improving productivity through smallholder palm oil replanting program, PSR, permajaan sawit rakyat. Expanding plantation area by enhancing maintenance, accelerating replanting, and resolving plantation located in the forested areas. Lifting the palm oil plantation moratorium to allow expansion with strong focus on environmental sustainability. Developing the oil palm seed industry to supply over 200 million seedling annually to meet domestic demand. Seed is the most important thing. Many of the smallholder palm oil farmers are provided a wrong seed. That's why some of them are fail on their crops. This is very serious matter for our sustainable palm oil industry. The third one is downstream aspects. Increasing B50 production by expanding factory installed capacity. Testing vehicle engine quality standard through road tests using B50. Rising biodiesel subsidy or incentive tariff. Introducing the new technology to enhance efficiency and performance. As the world's largest palm oil producer and also exporter, Indonesia remains committed to improving sustainable palm oil governance. The Indonesia Sustainable Palm Oil ISPO certification system, established in 2011, plays a important role in this effort. Under President Regulation number 44 of 2020, the ISPO certification has already accredited 1,132 businesses covering 36% of Indonesian total palm oil plantation area in 2019. To accelerate smallholder certification, the government has introduced funding support through the palm oil revenue sharing (DBH) and the Palm Oil Plantation Fund Management Agency (BPDPKS). In addition, initiatives such as fast-tracking ISPO compliance, strengthening partnership between smallholder and companies, and collaborating with NGOs and local government are essential to achieving our sustainability goal. On broader scale, the industry also benefits from the voluntary Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil certification scheme, which meet consumer demand for sustainable palm oil product. Indonesia continue to improve traceability and sustainability land management practices, reinforcing its commitment to smallholder and producer in ensuring compliance with global sustainability standard. With acknowledge of the European Union effort to reduce greenhouse gas emission and protect biodiversity, however, we believe that the EUDR, EU deforestation regulation policy does not adequately consider the right of producing countries like Indonesia, nor does it align with multilateral agreements such as the Paris Agreement or the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goal. We emphasize the importance of a more nuanced approach to sustainable development that balance economic, social, and environmental consideration. No one size fit all approach. Through various international forums, including the FAO, Indonesia has advocated the development of voluntary guidelines and sustainable vegetable oil, which will further support global effort to ensure a holistic and balanced approach to sustainable vegetable oil. Participant guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm also pleased to share that Indonesia has made significant strides in enhancing our national dashboard for sustainable commodity data and information, including palm oil, coordinated by the Ministry of Economic Affairs. This initiative is instrumental in tracking progress and ensuring the sector remains on the path to sustainability. We remain deeply committed to support smallholder farmers and ensuring this inclusion in the global palm oil value chain. Distinguished participants, guests, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I believe that stronger, more inclusive multi-stakeholders partnerships are essential to create lasting and meaningful impact. We must continue to foster dialogue and develop collaboration that benefit all actors across the agriculture and food system. As we work together to unlock the opportunities before us, I remain optimistic that Indonesia will continue to lead by the example, ensuring that economic growth, prosperity, and sustainability progress hand in hand for the benefit of our future generation. Uh, from the government side, we are very positive on any initiative, any positive initiative from anybody. Anything that is good for our people, anything that is good for our country, there is anything that is good for our economy. I, Vice Minister of Agriculture, strongly support, and I would like to, I would like to invite some of you, maybe if you have any further question, or do you have any issue that you want to discuss, I'm very open to do it. Once again, and at any initiative, I open, and positively, I will personally, as Vice Minister, I will follow up this, any initiative from you. Together with me in this meeting, I also ask my Director General, Pak Heru, so then we can, follow up and truly follow up, because the best plan is finished plan. The best plan is executed plan. So I want to, any initiative, we talk, we discuss in this place to find a solution, because somebody asks us like, are you part of the solution or are you part of the problem? And then, or are you the problem actually? Of course, we are sitting down here, we discuss, we argue each other to find any solution of any challenges or problem for our country, especially for palm oil industry that is very important and very vital for our economy, for our social people, Indonesian people, and also for the whole world. Thank you very much for the kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pa. Very inspiring and very reassuring, because anything you're attempting to do in such a complex construct of a problem, you cannot do it without the active, not just the blessings, but engagement of the government at the highest leadership level. Because many times the government is seen as the problem. Many times the government is seen as the solution in different contexts, in different countries, and having had the privilege of, I have traveled to 121 countries in my long international career, and you come across all kinds of situations, where the government is the solution, government is the problem. But here, my experience has been that the government is the solution in most cases, And of course, there are times that the government does its best, and even then the problems are so complex that despite the best efforts, it doesn't happen. But not because the government didn't want or didn't try, but despite everybody trying hard, sometimes, maybe 5–10% things don't happen. But so that's very reassuring part.
Thank you.
That we have your support in this very complex endeavor, and will hopefully succeed. And as you rightly pointed out, it's a multi-stakeholder process, taking everybody along, and actually speaking from a climate perspective and environment perspective, the problem is now so bad that if you are not a part of the solution, then you are the problem. Because earlier there were three possibilities, that are you the solution, or are you the problem, or are you mentioning the problem and not the solution? But now we are at a very bad place in human history in terms of the climate breakdown of the planetary fabric, that if you are not a part of the solution, or if you are not the solution, you are actually the problem, because you are blocking the way for others to go ahead and do something about it. With that, let me come to our moderated discussion. We have four very distinguished panelists today. His Excellency Ambassador Yuri, Pa Martinez, Pa Fitrian, and I'll call you Pa Peter, because that's how we do it here. Pa Peter Kennedy is the Chief Investment Officer of the world's largest fund on coral reefs. It's a UN partnership with Pegasus Capital Advisors and the UN, and when it was being set up. At that time, I was the Assistant Secretary General of the UN for Environment, and so I had a role to play in how it was structured at that time. It's roughly about $750 million. Indonesia is a part of the group of countries that are supposed to benefit from this fund, and I'm so glad he's there, because we're going to talk a little bit about blended finance and sustainable finance and how we can access funds that are already there, whether it's the Global Fund on Coral Reefs or the Subnational Climate Fund, which is another $750 million fund that can then potentially support these kind of forward-thinking ideas. We have to finish on time, so I'm going to request our panelists for your opening statements to kindly keep it to about 2 minutes so that we can have I'm sorry, initially we thought we'll have 90 minutes, but we have been given only 60 minutes, and we have to do what we can within that time. So let me start with Payuri. Give us a sense of where the challenges are with the European Union's, the EUDR and the RED regulations, and what can countries like Indonesia do to comply. Payuri.
Thank you very much. First of all, Your Excellency, Pak Sudaryono, Pak Sofyan Jalil, ex-minister, dear colleagues and friends, I'm grateful for this opportunity to discuss this topic, EUDR, and its implication to Indonesian palm oil industry. I've got 5 minutes, Pak Satya, no? Okay, I would like to make 4 observations. First observation, for Indonesia, palm oil is really very strategic. It's because of simple reason, It employs directly or indirectly 16 million people. 16 million people is larger than the whole population of Portugal, larger than the whole population of Belgium, almost as big as the total populations of the Netherlands. That's why it's very important for Indonesia. Back in 2023, it contributed no less than $30 billion to our economy, okay? And then, as the Vice Minister underlined, we now doing B35, B40. In other words, we produce palm oil-based biofuel. In so doing, we reduce our energy import, and we save no less than 20 billion from our state budget. So it's very, very important. Particularly, palm oil is also one of the most important tools for Indonesia to attain our SDGs goal, right? Okay, in light of that role, very strategic, for sure we are going to try our best to secure global market for our palm oil. Secondly, we will continuously trying to improve our sustainability, including by ISPO. And thirdly, we will stand up all out to defend our palm oil if it faces discrimination, if it faces black campaigns because they are not in line with free and fair trade principles. That's the first point, okay? Observation number 2. As from 2023, EU has rolled out the so-called EUDR, EU deforestation-free regulation, okay? It's really very onerous, very demanding, in all sides of the regulation. Even the many European countries are not prepared to live, faithfully with EUDR. Big countries like the US, like China, they are not in the position to be in line with EUDR, let alone producer countries like Indonesia. So many underline the importance of postponing the implementation of EUDR. Okay, and we welcome that this regulation has been postponed. Initially, it was to take place by December last year, but now it has been postponed the end of 2025, okay? So we welcome that. However, our concern is not at all on implementation time frame. Our concern is more on substantive dimension of EUDR. At least 4 things that I would like to bring in this discussion. The benchmarking system. The producing countries have serious difficulty with benchmarking system, not not least because it is discriminatory, it is punitive, and it has very subjective criteria. If Indonesia, for instance, be put in the high-risk criteria, it will be very serious. It will be an affront to our sovereignty, you know. Second point, geolocation data. Minister mentioned about national dashboard, national dashboard. Not each and every data can be shared just like that, you know. It should be arranged through appropriate arrangements. Countries like China cannot, share the data just like that, you know. That is the case also with Indonesia. We need to ensure interoperability between national dashboard of Indonesia and the platform in the EU, okay? And then the third thing, negative impact on our smallholder farmers. You know, it's onerous requirement on the part of EUDR. I think smallholder farmers are not in a position to fulfill this demand, you know. And then another technical thing is about maps. We have different maps. The maps owned by the EU is different with the map possessed by other countries. So it needs to be reconciled, okay? That's the second observation. The third observation, I talk with many friends in the palm oil industry. Palm oil industry, they are trying their best really to adjust with the EUDR. It is not easy, but they are trying their best, yeah? But my concerns more is, the fate of smallholders. They are not in the position really to live up to EUDR onerous requirements. So there is possibility that the smallholder farmers will be excluded from international supply chain. Poverty, livelihood threatened. Poverty is there, and poverty is not in line with the goal of promoting sustainable environment as well as combating deforestation and achieving SDGs, okay? And this is the last observation. Indonesia, like the EU, we are committed to promote sustainable environment. We are committed to fight deforestation. That's for sure, okay? To achieve this goal, I think we need to pursue cooperative approach. It's not imposition, because if you impose, then it creates impression of the so-called regulatory imperialism, And if a foreign minister of the EU, they call it over there HRVP, High Representative Vice President Joseph Borrell, when he was about to finish his job, he underlined this point. We need to be very wise. Unless we are wise, EU is wise, we are going to lose friends. We are going to lose goodwill. Where? In Global South. With this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Pa. I think you made some very valid points, but I'll come back to them once we've heard from the other esteemed panelists. Pa Martinez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Satya. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Martinez Nata. I'm the representative from Surveyor Indonesia. So at this point, we are glad to be invited into this honorable meeting, and thank you so that we can presenting our presentation in front of His Excellency Pak Sudaryono and also His Excellency Pak Yuri, and also His Excellency Pak Sofian Jalil at this point. So at this point, what Surveyor Indonesia already prepared, and at this point to support our ministry, especially the coordinating economy ministry, which we provide what we call as the national resource, as being mentioned by Pak Yuri. And at this point also, our position at this point, we try to combine all of the data that established in each companies and stakeholders. And we know that most of the data is diverse. The situation is not easy also to be captured. we are working with many actors, with stakeholders, with companies also to capture all this information. But of course, there is a lot of things that we have to think, to discuss with many ministries also, because we need to elaborate the situation on the ministry level to harmonize, because the data is not only on Ministry of Agriculture, but also in the Ministry of Forestry. And right now there is new nomenclature for ministry that we have to adapt. And at this point, we are working with many parties on preparing on this level. So we are preparing using the blockchain system, but we knew that not all of the stakeholders have the blockchain system. So on this point, we are doing what we call as interoperability, as mentioned by Pak Yuri. And we are also already prepare and show the dashboard that we already prepared, the multi-strategic platform for commodities. But we all knew that with the situation right now in palm oil sectors, and we are also just now, we have a meeting with the Ministry of Agriculture on ISPO preparation, that hopefully most of the criteria based on the expert that joining into the event, they say that most of the information is aligned with the EUDR. But on this point, we are trying to state that as government, we are not trying to comply with many systems. We are at this level trying to give the proper data as government, so that if other company or that's selling the product to abroad, they need several information, the government can support, because the one that have to prepare the information is not only private sector. Private sector, I'm sure they have their effort, they have their modality to support the system, they can sell the product. But how about the smallholders? The smallholders is one thing that we need to treat. So that's why at this point, Survey Indonesia already went to several cooperation from Aceh until Papua. We met with so many stakeholders, not only palm oil sectors, but also coffee, rubber, cocoa, that affected with this EUDR regulation. And yeah, things that we need to prepare at this point, because we already prepared several related to the programming and system and so on. But the things that have to be prepared by our government is to ensure the mandate, the regulation, to establish the system, so that every actors, not only for smallholders, but also company, to align with the initiative from the government to, yeah, of course, we want to show that Indonesia have commitment related to sustainability. And the other things that we need to discuss also is how we try to provide the correct data. Because at this point, on the data governance, on the data information that we have, if we using AI, there is several information from many organizations that stating that the data for palm oil sectors is this amount of million ton and so on. But based on our piloting with all of the stakeholders that are already working with us, we knew that if we rely on the near real-time data, the information of palm oil data could be higher than that. Reflecting on the information that we have 52 million or 46 million that being stated by His Excellency Pak Sudaryono, based on our piloting information, it could be bigger than that. Because if we reflect on the information of in tobacco sector, they have 2.5 million hectares, but they can support our government with 200 trillion rupiah. But palm oil sector, they have 16 million hectares. How how come we only get 400 trillion rupiah? So we need to emphasize the implementation of the multi-strategic platform to ensure that the data that we have that can support our government needs by establishing this kind of system could be immediately being related to a state-owned enterprise to implement this system. So that's why if we want to discuss with so many actors abroad related to sustainability and so on, we can show that our IPOSS standard could align with EUDR. On some point, there is similar information that already being provided by actors, being verified by a certification body, and all of the information, of course, could answer what the government needs. So that's why very important for us in this honorable event, in this honorable meeting, that the implementation of the what we call as the national dashboard or the strategic platform that being initiated by coordinating ministry to be implemented in Indonesia as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Because based on information from the private sector, July is, the deadline if we want to comply with several standards, not only EUDR, but also there is a green commodity China from green commodity index from China. This is another system that will be implemented by several buyers also. So that's the things that I guess we have to implement it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Sorry, we're running out of time. So, Pak Fitrian, the bridging science and policy, there's the best of technology that must come into play if we are trying to create a scale model that can be replicated. As the Honorable Minister pointed out, currently, as compared to what the potential is, the average palm oil productivity is less than 50% of that. So how do we bridge that science policy divide so that we can get the best of everything into a pilot that can then become the flag bearer of what is possible and can be replicated? Over to you, Pak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Pak Satya, His Excellency Vice Minister, Pak Sudaryono, His Excellency Ambassador Yuli Tamrin, and my dear Guru, His Excellency Pak Sofian. Good to see you again. So it's a quite challenging task to respond to Pak Satya, bridging science and policy when it comes to sustainable palm oil. But I just want to focus on 2 or 3 elements in this case. One, of course, like the Vice Minister mentioning in the beginning, it's about also strengthening and enhancing productivity and traceability, sustainability, especially for smallholders. And don't forget also second and third tier companies. We tend to talk about the big companies or state-owned enterprise and then smallholders, but there are also plenty of middle companies or midstream companies that also are in need of help. And second of all, I think Peter Kennedy would also talk in elaborative way. It's about leveraging innovations in financings. How can we get the right model so that it's not only going to provide benefits to the bigger ones or the bigger actors, but also trickle down to smallholders. So in my view, Pak Satya, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we also need to focus on the basic. Because some small-scale farmers, smallholders, smaller actors are still applying what we call outdated farming techniques. Vice Minister already mentions about the fake seed and seedlings. I think that's also important to address. Can we, for instance, provide good extension services, different delivery models in which farmers, smaller actors can really get help so that we can push the improvement of productivity without expansions. So this is something I think that we need to work together. I think there are some gentlemen, our dear friends coming from research centers that can also provide that kind of models, working together with big companies, this institution, as well as different cooperatives. So that kind of new knowledge, cutting edge knowledge, can still be transferred or connected to smallholders. That's, I think, quite crucial. So research in precision agriculture, improved seed variety, soil health management, should be made accessible to smallholders. And of course, you mentioned, Pak Martinez, about ISPO and also the government policy. I think it needs to get some support, Pak Wamen, when it comes to policy frameworks, so the knowledge transfers and training can still be elaborated further, also on the ground with the help of extension services. And I think one of crucial aspects that Pak Sofian in the past has led the way is about addressing land tenure security, the land legality. I think Pak Wamen also mentioned about this. Many smallholders lacking when it comes to formal land rights. So with this, it has already limited their ability to access not only such resources, but also more importantly, they cannot get access to finance. I think that kind of things we need to support further. Traceability, technology, innovations would need to be elaborated further and supported. Pak Martinez mentioned about blockchains, satellite monitoring. It's quite expensive for smallholder and smaller players. So when we talk about blended finance, Pak Satya, I think it needs to cover these kind of elements. Otherwise, only the big players can access that kind of innovation and technology. Last but not least, in my view, again, because I'm also now helping manage one fund called Asia Climate Smart Landscape Fund, and since January this year, the government of Indonesia has asked me to also be the representative of consulting committee members of Common Fund for Commodities. I think Ambassador Yuri Tambling, you know this is based in Amsterdam. It's quite crucial to help not only smallholders again, but also second and third tier companies to understand what it means when it comes to blended finance. How can they access that? And what sort of projects and activities that can be eligible to be supported by this kind of blended finance. Again, I think Pak Peter would hopefully mention about this. So we must push the models when it comes to financing models that can combine let's say BPDP or BPDPKS, the public funds, but also combining with private sector investment, climate finance mechanism, Pak Satya. So a combination of green bonds, impact investment, and more likely also preferential lending rates. Because in many ways, smallholders and smaller actors, they are in need of capital to transform the productivity, the technology, to get access of new cutting-edge research and science, but they don't have that kind of access. And also, maybe the capital is there, but the rates are not necessarily preferable to them. So can we also help them, I mean, government providing guarantee facility and so on and so forth. Maybe that's something that Pak Peter will say much more. So with that, I think aligning science, policy, financial innovations, this should be covered in one blended model. So it's not only also about blended financing, but also blended model to support this kind of transformation for sustainable palm oil with the support of all stakeholders. Thank you so much, Pak Satya and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Fitrian. I think it's becoming clear from listening, starting with Pak Sofian and then the Honorable Minister and Pak Yuri and Pak Martinez and yourself, is that what we are looking at is a blended opportunity instead of just blended finance, you know. So how does blended finance support that coming together of a host of opportunities, whether it is, as the Minister rightly pointed out, you need the best of seed nurseries. You need the best of tracing and tracking technology. You need data governance. You need interoperability of data. You need the right kind of hand-holding for smallholders so that they are not left out of the process. So how do we package it all together for someone like you to fund, Peter? Over to you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in such an honorable group of people here. But I think, first of all, it's, the guy that's running a blue economy fund, those about palm, And I spent the first half of my career in technology, and the first time I was in Indonesia was in the 90s, actually financing fiber optic cables for companies like XLCom. But for the past 20 years, have been investing in sustainable agriculture and impact investing, and more recently shifted to the blue economy. So we spent, about a decade looking at ag, and particularly in places like, Indonesia, for a lot of the small-scale farmers, and looking at what type of technologies could really help some of these small-scale farmers, and are they financeable from that perspective. And I think the short story is that there's no silver bullet in technologies. Yeah. This is about how do we wrap this up with technology enhancement and business model applications. So I think as everybody's kind of talked about in the palm oil, I think there's a lot of people know what's going on here. We have small holders that are producing 1 ton of palm versus best in class 6 to 8 tons. And how do we get those smallholders, to actually make more money, right? Because we can talk about carbon, we can talk about biodiversity, but at the end of the day, it's got to be economic for small shareholders to do this, right? And we've tried lots of different models over the years. So it really comes down to, if you want, a lot of the large corporations, really have the enhanced seed, right? If you look at basically looking at the seed, but are smallholders really going to rip out, half of their palm and to put in new seed and wait, 6 years to get? How do we finance those interim years, and whether that's cover crops or offtake agreements or other creative ways to do that? I think that's what needs to be kind of implemented, and we've actually done a little bit of work with that with the IFC and other groups of looking kind of public and private partnerships. The other side is corporations, and how they can actually participate in this, and whether that's kind of long-term offtake agreements or putting out in place to actually finance that. The other side is insurance, right? And how do we insure some of these crops? Because I think you're looking at seed, insurance, and then best practices to do that. And it all becomes more financeable, the more bankable as we implement further and further down these areas. But technology will play a role, and I think we're seeing, we have an investment in a traceability company that a lot of people are looking at the requirements out of Europe. But this, again, is an app-based technology, satellite-based technology, but 1,000 people on the ground, right? This is combination of, there's not just, an app, but you have to have people down the ground mapping this out, but utilizing technology to get productivity out of those people. So again, there are technologies that are working. We do think it's going to become more cost-effective to actually map out some of these land areas, to actually do the traceability for these. In the U.S. next month, there'll be a satellite that's being launched that has 10-centimeter visibility to the ground, so we can see the bald spot in the head from space. So you can imagine the implications of that technology on mapping various areas, and very cost-effective to do that type of approach. So, I guess I don't have all the answers, but I think what we are looking at is some innovative models to help some of these small-scale farmers. I think there's a need for both corporate, public, and private, and that's what we're trying to do in some of the funds that are out of Pegasus, is really to marry that blended type of financing to enhance this. But again, I think it's how do we get to improve the lives of small shareholders, putting aside all the other implications, and that's up to consumers to drive or pay a premium for some of those values. But how do we get the smallholders to really conserve and get better, cheaper, faster?
Thank you so much, Peter. I think you've made my job much easier in terms of bringing it all together. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I want to leave enough time for Pak Sofyan to close. So, we had a fascinating conversation that ranges from the challenges faced by smallholders in terms of land tenure, to identifying, who's the owner of the land and what is the tenure, and what kind of access to technology they have, what databases are there, what is the interoperability of those databases. I'm sorry, we ran out of time.
I'm the ambassador of the EU. I think you spoke a lot about the EUDR. You invited me here.
So, I mean, of course.
Now you don't allow me to speak.
No, I mean, you are most welcome to speak. Please go ahead. Kindly keep it brief. Unfortunately, I don't control the time, so I'm given a certain amount of time to wrap it up in. But please go ahead.
Well, it's very difficult to wrap in 1 minute. It is very difficult to wrap in 1 minute.
You have to press it to red?
Yep. So, thank you very much, and sorry for the unforeseen intervention, but I was invited, so I thought I would be able to put some points. But first of all, we hear you, Excellencies, and I think that the fact that the implementation was delayed by 1 year is one thing. But I think it's very important to keep the big picture in mind in the world that we are living on and that is changing before our eyes. Indonesia trade surpluses are with India, with US, with Philippines, and with EU. On India, it is a lot of coal and a bit of palm oil. On the US, it's a lot of textile. With EU, it's quite diversified. Last year, 8 billion trade surplus for Indonesia. The year before, 11 billion trade surplus. We are not imposing any tariffs or tax or any arbitrary measure. We are a reliable and predictable partner. So we have to look at the big picture. So if we look at the big picture, Indonesia is a champion of palm oil. Fantastic production. 50% used internally, 50% exported. Out of these 50%, only 5% are exported to the EU. 5% of the total production of palm oil in Indonesia is exported to the EU. Out of these 5%, 3 to 4% are through big plantations that have been certified some time ago. Who are the big importers of palm oil in the EU? Unilever, Ferrero Rocher, they have been certified for years and they are providing very good money. So we are talking about 1 to 2% of the production of palm oil in Indonesia affected by the EUDR. Look at the big pictures of the trade flows. Consumer preferences in the EU have led to this regulation. We are really working hard, but others are doing, the same. China is doing a system of certification as well, and US is going into a direction I will not comment. So this is the picture, and this comes to the first thing you said, moral outrage. That is the push. Now, operational imperative. We have worked relentlessly with CPOPC to do exactly what you have mentioned, productivity, finance, and things. We have 14 million euros of ongoing project for smallholders, pilot projects. One company, a European company in Indonesia, certified 30,000 smallholders, not of palm oil, of another product affected by EUDR, for 1 million euro. For 1 million euro, they certified 30,000 productors. We are doing 14 million euro of EU grants to certify things. We have done the 1 year delay. We have had a special joint task force with Malaysia and with Indonesia to listen things. And now, for the future, we are ready to work with the Vice Minister to have a special consultation and to do a pilot project so that our aim is that the trade flows are unaffected, that we keep importing palm oil at the level that is currently or even higher. It is important for our competitiveness. We want to work with Indonesia to make sure that the trade flows are not interrupted.
Thank you, Ambassador. When I mentioned about the moral outrage, it was not specific to this particular conversation. I was just talking about the historical carbon utilization and that segment of the world that has used up most of the historical carbon is now putting regulations on sustainability on other parts of the world that are actually well below net zero. In many parts of the world, if you go to countries, the per capita carbon footprint is 0.1 tons, 0.2 tons, 0.3 tons as compared to some of the countries in the Western world that are 16 tons, even 20 tons. So that's where I was coming from, not specific to this particular conversation. But I think I completely agree with you that we need to be focused on the big picture. Whatever our personal feelings might be towards what has happened historically. And you could go into all kinds of issues, not just carbon, there's colonialism, there's all kinds of things we can talk about. But the reality is that we are actually at a place and time in human history that the entire living fabric of the planet is unraveling. It is literally disintegrating. And we, as responsible citizens of the world, must do everything we can to do the best we can to actually produce the kind of results that the planet desperately needs to keep it still livable for humans. So on that, there can be no disagreement that the big picture is very important, and that's the purpose of this conversation, that Indonesia should lead the way in sustainability, even though the numbers may be 1% or 2% as it relates to the EU, but there's a cascading effect of sustainability requirements that happens invariably. Somebody starts and then others, it catches on. So it's always good to be ahead of that curve, to be sustainable for our own sake, rather than, and then I think Pa Martinez made that point very emphatically, that it is important to be sustainable, not just for one particular reason or another reason, so that we are sustainable, period. And that no matter who comes, we says, okay, these are your requirements, we meet these requirements. Yes. So that's a much better way to look at it than address things in a piecemeal basis. So thank you, Ambassador, for making that point very emphatically. I will close now. We've run out of time, unfortunately. I'll pass it on to Pa Sofian to wrap it up, and then followed by inviting the MC to come and close it. Over to you, Pa Sofian.
Thank you, Pak Satya. I think everything has been said, or almost everything has been said. But we agree that palm oil is from Indonesia is like a goose that lay golden egg. Let protect this goose and let feed it. Don't disturb it. Otherwise the golden egg will not be brought. Right? And then I think the discussion today is very good. Let's make discussion into action. This is the objective of the IES today. Let all discussion, good discussion, become action. Yeah. Thank you, Excellency Vice Minister. And then we'll communicate with Pak Dirjen, and Satya. Will work closely together, and let's try make a pilot project on how to support sustainable palm oil, especially at PSR program, replanting program for smallholders. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.